Hey, I think the link changed. I just texted you the new link.
Okay.
All right. See you. Bye.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? This is Jeff, a junior hockey advisor. It's Wednesday night. It's time to talk hockey. Tonight, we're going to have a great time. We're going to talk about the difference between the USPHL and the EHL. We're going to look at it from a bunch of different angles. I think you're going to enjoy this. We're going to jump on, and Mr. Mike Bloom will be here in a second as we get rolling. I hope you're ready. Let's have a good time. Time to get Mike on. There he is, Mike Bloom.
Ta-da.
All pretty and Red Winged out. Got to be a little bit happy with those Red Wings, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was an exciting last few games that they had. It was kind of weird how they ended up not making the playoffs, but, overall, a lot more excitement from that team than we've seen in, 5, 6, 7 years. So looks like they're building something.
5, 6, 7, 10, 12.
Let's not go that crazy.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while. So, listen, tonight we're talking about the USPHL and anything else anybody else wants. If you're on and you like what we do, make sure you become part of our Facebook group. Our Facebook discussion group is where you can talk, ask questions, get information about anything pertaining to moving from youth hockey into juniors, from youth to prep, from juniors to college. We try to really tackle all the issues that you might have and try to do it in a fun way and try to make it something that you can actually walk away feeling like you accomplished something instead of just sitting there and flipping through YouTube dance videos. That'd be a waste of time. Nobody would want to do that.
TikTok dance videos.
Okay. Maybe we'll get into that as the night goes on, and I'll explain what we're talking about. Although I did send you a TikTok dance video today. I don't know if you got it in it. Okay, Mike, we've got to tackle this. We got to jump on. Oh, before I forgot, I got off on a dance kick. Also, YouTube, Junior Hockey Advisor YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe there. All of our videos over the last 4 years are housed there. You can jump back into hundreds of different videos. And what's really cool is YouTube's not completely done with this yet, but they're going in and they're putting them into chapter form. So once you search a issue, a lot of times it'll pop right up onto that chapter for you in the video. We try to chapter a lot of the stuff that we're doing recently, but it's just time consuming to go back through videos and put all the edits in and put new chapters in. So, but we are doing it. It's just taking a little bit of time. So, Michael, first thoughts on this topic tonight.
It's one of those things where having known we were going to talk about it, I've wavered back and forth, with some of my thoughts on it, because there's two stark differences in the way that those leagues are kind of designed. And, I know we'll probably get into it, but I think there is a good debate, when you're looking at it, of where is the better option for a player. Is it to go in the EHL or the USPHL Premier? Because in some respects, the destination that you can get to is similar. It's, not apples to apples necessarily from every team's perspective within these leagues. But, if you take the top teams in both leagues, I think it is more of an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Should we start out with numbers, or should we talk, everything but numbers first? What way would you rather go about this?
Why don't you, since you're pretty familiar with these two different junior leagues, there may be people on the call that, may be familiar with one and not the other. Why don't you kind of just break down just the differences or the similarities between, both differences and similarities between the two different leagues?
Sure. You got to go back in history a little bit on this. The EHL is part of the the core of that league. And this is talking about the New York Apple Cores and the New Hampshires, even though they've kind of gone through some different reiterations over the years. The core of the EHL was the split off from the EJHL when the EJHL decided to become the USPHL. Now, when the USPHL first started, it was USPHL Premier and Elite. Okay, the NCDC wasn't the top level at first. What happened was they decided to elevate certain programs into the NCDC level. Then it became NCDC, then Premier, and then Elite on the USPHL side. Okay. On the EHL side, although they have Premier and Elite now there too, the EHL's core was just the guys that did not go with the USPHL model. The USPHL model, it was different, but they were doing the same thing at the EJHL level that we're seeing with the expansion of the NCDC. I know I'm getting all over the place, but just keep that in mind that I got a DM the other day saying, a random DM saying, hey, is the USPHL and the EHL going to combine? And I went, well, knowing the personalities involved and knowing the history of it, we're only 8 years out from that split. Now, business creates some strange partnerships, and people can mend fences. I don't know where that is between the core ownership groups of both sides. I just don't know, and I can't see that happening. But so you got the EHL that split off, and then you got the USPHL. Totally different models, but they both have one key common ingredient. They're both designed as internal, stay-at-home models. In other words, when you go into the EHL, it's not a promotion league. You go to the NUL and you get an opportunity to get promoted to the USHL. It's applause out the door. Let's go. Good luck. We're pulling for you. And there's active participation from the USHL to always be looking at the North American Hockey League to pull players up. The EHL has nobody above them that they're trying to send players to. So they want to keep players. Doesn't mean the players don't leave there, but their model is to keep their players. And, this is your last destination in juniors before you jump on to go play college hockey. The USPHL is similar, and they're similar in the fact that if you're playing Elite, they want you to go to their Premier. From Premier, they want you to go to NCDC. They're not looking to promote you outside. They're trying to keep it internalized. There's nothing wrong with that model. You just have to know that going in, that they're not actively, junior programs aren't actively seeking EHL players at the higher levels, the tier 1 and tier 2 junior programs, the Canadian junior programs. They're not scouting actively in those leagues. Doesn't mean that, some players don't, for various reasons, get into the higher leagues. It's just not actively scouted. We don't scout the EHL from a North American Hockey League standpoint, nor does the USHL. So that's the similarities between the two. The biggest difference, though, the just incredible difference, is the size of the leagues. The EHL is 36 teams, I believe, right now, and they're all, New York, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Mass. They're all right in there. I don't know if they're running any besides the New York downstate team. I don't think there's anything upstate, but you got teams. You got the Seahawks, the Seacoast Spartans. All those programs are up in the. I think they're all New Hampshire up in there. Then you get down in the Boston area, you get into the East Coast Wizards and the Walpole, and you get into the Boston Junior Rangers. So you got a big influence of East Coast teams there. A lot of these teams are so close that travel is extremely easy. Juxtapose that to the USPHL Premier, 64 teams. Just a ton of teams, and not only is there a lot of teams, but they're going now from coast to coast. These teams are everywhere. There's divisions, which makes it easier, but this is not a league that's consolidated. So it's very, very difficult to compare an East Coast USPHL team to a West Coast USPHL team. A team that's in the Midwest to an East Coast team, it's very difficult. They only get together once in a while. There's not much cross pollination between those with games, interdivision games. So you just really, you can pretty much tell in the EHL who's on top, who's in the middle, and you can historically look at it and see how they all fit together. Very, very difficult to do in the USPHL Premier. Does that help?
Yeah, and I think I can't remember the exact number you said with the EHL. You said I think in the 30s, but it's actually 23 total teams in the
Is it
EHL.
23?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 4, 24. Yeah, 24 teams. Sorry, I said 36. It's 24. You're right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
much,
so even
much
more
smaller.
drastic on the differences there, and I
Yeah.
apologize on that. And I've known a lot of these coaches and general managers in that league. The quality in both leagues is subjective to who is coaching the team and who owns the team. It's always been that way. It's always going to be that way. You can have a great team that's in the bottom third in one year because maybe the talent's not there, but they've got good ownership. They got a good team. They usually can rebound from that, and maybe they have a one-off year. It'd be like if you're Shreveport or Lone Star in the NAL, it may be some other programs in the NAL too. If you see those teams as fourth and fifth in the league, it would happen one year. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but if it did, it'd be 1 year. Then they most likely would rebound real quick. Same thing with these teams. You're well coached, well managed, well owned teams typically stay on top, and the other programs struggle a little bit. That's the easiest way to put it from my perspective. And I apologize on that. I counted the columns real quick, and I must have added a couple digits there. Maybe I didn't take off the left shoe and I only took off the right shoe. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, but it's good to put that into context because again, 23 teams in one league versus close to 70, 64, whatever it is in the USPHL Premier. That's a significant difference. You're talking about 3 times the size of the league in the USPHL Premier. So
yeah, and go ahead, keep talking, Mike. I
was just going to say we've done a show before where we talked about just how lopsided the win was in one of those games throughout this past season. That you don't really see that as much in the EHL just because there's a lot closer parity among the top teams, and there's still the haves and the have-nots in there, but it's not that significant of a difference like it is if you're the top 5 team in the USPHL Premier and you're playing against the 60th or the 61st team or whatever. That's a significant difference in talent on that roster with those programs. So there's something to be said with just how the leagues are designed, from a competitive balance standpoint.
And we can get a little deeper into the EHL. This is what it looks like on a map. This is just the northeastern part of the United States. And this is all the way up into New Hampshire. Vermont's over here. New York's over here. And, Boston, Mass is in this area. New York, all the way down to the islands are right there. And you can see it's very clustered, on the seaboard there. And it makes it a very easy league to do travel in for the most part. It's an extremely easy league for travel comparatively to other leagues. So that's a very big advantage of this league. And I think a lot of people like it. I wish I could bring up a map of D3 programs because D3 NCAA D3 programs, cluster very similar to this, maybe a little bit more down here into the, I don't know if you can see where my mouse is there, but they cluster down here, but D3 programs all the way through this whole area here. Not so much into Pennsylvania, but definitely there's a few in Pennsylvania, but New York is just loaded with D3 schools up in here. Mass is just loaded with D3 schools. And so there's a easy ability for a kid that's playing in this league to be able to step off any day of practice and go, within a half hour, an hour and see 2-3 schools if he wanted to. There are players that I know that have played in this league that have visited 15, 20 different campuses to go visit and watch practices of D3 programs before they make their Division III decisions. So really easy in that respect, to be able to see schools and to get an idea what D3 hockey is about. This league is, a D3 league. This is what it's built for, is Division III hockey. They make no bones about it. They're not loaded with D1 talent, but they really, really pride themselves on being a D3 league. Just to go through the numbers, we might as well, and then we'll do the USPHL also. Here's how you do it to find out what this looks like. You can go into this league here, get an idea here, look at how many teams they have, 2, 4, 6, 6 times 4. We did that. That's 24. I already messed that number up once. But now I can come back up here, and if I just put in NCAA Division III, right there it pops up. I can click on that, and now I can look at all of the NCAA. They don't map it out, but there's all your teams right there. I'm not going to count them up. They're probably around 80, 90 teams, I think now, somewhere in that range. But what I can do is I can go down here, and here's all the players listed in the league. I can hit the Show More button. And when I hit the Show More button, what it does is it brings up my filter on the top. And I can just go in here, and then I can I want to filter out all the players that played in the EHL. So once I type that in, I hit EHL, I go back down, hit my filter again. And what this is going to give me now, we know there's 24 teams in there, but it's going to tell me how many players played from the EHL played in NCAA Division III this last season. So that number is down at the very bottom. You see where I'm circling here with my mouse right next to if you're looking at the screen, I'm just above Mike, to the left of Mike, and it says 100 players, but then there's a little number down here that says 488. So of the forwards, there's 488. And then if I continue down here, it shows me the goalies, and I can count up the goalies real quick. It's 34. And now that's the reason they break this up, is they give goalies that got more than 10 games and goalies that got less than 10 games. So in college, that counts. I would not say that counts as much in juniors. When you see a goalie that's only got 2, 3, 4 games, or even up to 9 games, in juniors, that might not mean as much because there's 65 games. In college, because they carry 3 goalies and younger goalies move into the lineup differently, you still count these guys. They still count in, being part of the team. And you don't see trades, and you don't see things like that you see in juniors. So all in all, there's 36 more goalies here. It gives us a total of 556 players. So out of 24 teams, they've produced a current number of 566. Let's go take a look. Mike, you got anything to say before we flip over here?
Well, just that top number isn't just forwards; it's forward and D. So I guess you could call it skaters.
Yeah, skaters. I use forwards generically. I apologize for that, but you're right. Skaters is a better terminology. See, you're new school. I'm old school. Or maybe I'm advanced so much because now I don't even look at defensemen as being defensemen. There's just 5 interchangeable players on the ice. So they're all forwards in my book. So how's that sound? Stick that in your pipe, Mike.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's look at the Premier League. We can do the same thing with the Premier League. We can come up here and we can go down. We got all of our teams right there. In the Premier, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Just a quick math. We got 16 times 4, just to make sure that's 64 total. But then you notice we're missing 2. So my number was off there too. It's only 62 teams that they're carrying currently in the league. So you can see all these names. Some of them, to be honest with you, there's a few names on there I don't even know where they're at. I couldn't tell you where they're at on the map. There's just some teams I just haven't had a chance to catch up with. Interesting, they've got one Canadian team here, that Gatineau team. I believe that's one of the hybrid academic places that also that offer hockey, where the kids are there full time for school too. I believe that's the way that's working. But any names that you don't recognize on that list, Mike?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, it's hard. There's 64 teams, and we really don't deal with that league as much as we used to. And when we do deal with it, it's usually some of the more established names. So then you can go down. There's their final standings. I'm not too worried about that right now, but it's good to look at if you're looking for a team. You get an idea that all the way out in the Pacific. These are the ones that I'm not as familiar with. These names and the level. Some of these were the old Western Hockey League teams, and some are just brand new franchises. The Southeast, the same thing. This is actually, the Southeast is much more established. Hampton Roads, Carolina, Charlotte, they've all been around for a while. So let's get down here to the names. Oh, if you haven't looked at this screen before, it'll even break down the league for you in nationality, so you can see where the players are coming from. 16% Canadian, a few of these people from over across the pond, and then the U.S. population of players is down here. 71% of the league is U.S. So that's surprisingly more or less U.S. and more non-U.S. than I was expecting. If you want to have fun, we'll get back up to the account, but another thing you can do for fun is just slide down here, and you can look at the nationalities and get a breakdown. There's a lot of different countries that are represented in that league, probably more so than the NAL and more so than the USHL, absolutely more than the USHL. But you've got China in there. You just got them all over the place. Yeah, the crazy places they come from. But then it gets fun when you start getting down here, and you can look at experience. This is right up to date snapshot of today. How much experience they've got, how many players have gone through their roster, average height, average weight. That's some cool numbers to play with, especially for experience. You could probably correlate really easy, and it's usually a fair correlation. If you look at the standings versus the teams that are loaded with experienced players, you're usually going to see that number correlates. So the more senior amount of games you have, usually you're on the top of the league normally. Now you get situations like University of Michigan had in basketball a few years ago when they had the Fab Five, where you get 5 rookies that come in that could, change your program around. Doesn't happen that often, but it could, So that's fun to play with. And then another thing that's fun to play with is looking at who the oldest player in the league is, who's the tallest player. They got a 6'10" guy playing in the league, a 6'8" and a 6'10". Wow.
All the Canadians.
Yeah, look at that.
Be stretching them out up there.
Okay, hey, basketball guys, you're in the wrong sport. Look at the weight of some of these guys, 256, 240. Holy smokes. Think about that. I was considered huge, like just bulky huge when I played, and I played at below 220. Most of the time I was between 2'4" and 210, and I was considered huge at the time. To play hockey at 256, holy smokes, that's a big boy.
Well, if you're 6'8", though, that's
but he's not.
pretty thin.
Is that none of those? Oh, Nate Whitson, 6'7", 240. Now that one's okay.
Yeah.
But this Buchholz kid, he must just be a weightlifter or something.
He's getting into his coaching weight.
Yeah. So then you can see youngest, shortest, lightest. That's just fun numbers. So getting back up to the list up here, and we'll jump in right here where this.
You got to go to the NCAA D3 first.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I would have wasted time. We've done that before. You know it. Thanks for catching me. But I sound good when I make mistakes, though. I still sound like I know what I'm doing, and that's important.
It's this damn technology stuff.
Not tonight. It's this Alzheimer's on my part. Okay, here's D3. Once again, we go down to the first green box under the players. We grab them. So we'll grab a number while we're here. Come on, there we go. So 2,300. There's 2,363 skaters, and then there's going to be about 240 something goalies, I believe. If we go down here, there's 288 goalies. So that's a total of 3,257 on the players. We just want to keep that number written down because we're going to use that in a second. Now, when we go back up to this list in the top to the search window, now we're going to type in USPHL. PHL, and then it pops up Premier. We grab the Premier, we go back down. And did we lose our whole audience yet, Mike, with this? Or are we close?
No, I think guys are still hanging in there with us.
Yeah, we're hanging in there. Put your comments on, folks. Let's see what people are saying about this. Are you saying this is crazy? Oh, man, we got lots of comments. I got to catch up on the comments. I'll do that in a second. Okay. So here we got 594 players. And then we look at our goalies. We've got 38 goalies that have got over 10 games. And we've got 45, I believe, 48 goalies that are below 10 games. So that gives us a total of about 670 or 681, I believe. Quick math. Okay, so now what does all that mean? Now we can go back to our get rid of this. And we're back. There we go. We came back smaller. Let's go bigger. That's too big. Let's go smaller. There we go. I'll stay with that. All right. The interesting thing about this is now we can do a little math on this. So if there's 31, 51 or 57 NCAA players, and then let's just use we'll use the EHL first. If the EHL has 558 players that are at that level, divide that by 30. I need my glasses back on. 3151. That means that of the EHL, 17% of NCAA Division III comes from the EHL. So now, I believe I did this earlier already. The 681 divided by 3151. The number I came up with was about 26%. Okay, of the league is coming from the USPHL. Now, first glance, what do you think, Mike?
I mean, that seems about right. The USPHL Premier should have more players. They've got triple the amount of teams. So
exactly. So the next number to take is to take that 556, the kids that are in from the EHL, and divide that by their 24. That means they're putting 556 divided by 24. That means they're putting 23 players per team in the league. That's not right. 556. What am I doing wrong here, Mike?
Well,
I just want to divide the 24 and see.
You're trying to see like how many players per team?
Per team, right. And it should be just dividing that number. Anyway, you can figure that out, though. You divide that out, and you're going to see that there's proportionately, there's a ton more kids coming from per team from the EHL. And the odds of you being on a team that's going to get a considerable amount of D3 players is going to come from the EHL. Lower volume overall, the bulk is lower, but boy, oh boy, per team, they're potent. They're very potent. Whereas with a 60-something odd level, 60-something teams in a league, the USPHL might beat them in numbers, but I know for a fact, that there's multiple teams that don't even get one kid into Division III hockey. So I'd be very careful there. I mean, there's some great teams in both. There's great coaching in both, but I think you've got to do your homework a little more on the USPHL than you have to do on the EHL. I think you do homework on both, but I think you really got to jump in depth to see where those players are coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think, when you try to compare the two different leagues, the weird thing is people will a lot of times say, if you're from out east, because there's so many different schools, like you mentioned before, that are already stationed out east, that I want to go to the EHL because I'm going to have a great chance of having one of those east schools, commit me and I go there and whatnot. They make it seem as though if you played for the USPHL Premier that was located away from the East, that those East schools are no longer an option. Like you have to play in the East to get a commitment at an East school. And that's just not how it works. Like if you look at the EHL, they do have a lot of teams out East that are committing those players. But if you look at the breakdown of the players on those EHL rosters, they're also from out East. So for them to go to school, they would prefer to go to a school that's out East because that's their home. That's where they live. So for us, and me growing up in Chicago or when I was in Detroit and things like that, I don't really care about playing for a school out East. If there's schools in the Midwest or whatever that are recruiting me also, I would prefer to go there. So it doesn't matter what league I'm in. Those opportunities don't just dry up because I'm playing in the Midwest. If I'm a good player, any of those schools are going to still want you. It's my preference to stay in the Midwest and play there. So a lot of people get kind of confused on the fact that if I want to go to a school out East, I have to go play in a league out East because that's how they're going to see me. That's not the case. Like if you're a good player and you're playing in the USPHL Premier or you're playing in the NA3 or any of these different junior leagues, if you're good enough, any of those East schools are going to still see you and recruit you and want to get you into their program.
But really, Mike, do you really think that you're getting the same amount of percentage of coaches watching? You know, you're in Chicago, you got numerous tier 3 teams in that area. In the Midwest, there's numerous teams. Are you really getting as many of those, you know, East Coast coaches out watching games in that area as versus the ones that just stay home and recruit their, you know, the local market?
Well, that would be pretty sad on those colleges if they're limiting their options to just what's drivable and seeable in person.
Oh, a lot of them don't have the budget. A lot
Well,
of them just
exactly.
literally don't have a budget at all. And
But we all have the ability to recruit online. So if I'm only that's like saying us as scouts, if I'm only limiting who I'm going to recruit from the Brahmas to the kids who play AAA hockey in Chicago, we will not have a very good program if those are the only kids that I'm looking at.
wait, I'm supposed to be going outside of the market to find kids?
I don't even know if you ever go inside the market.
Oops. Hey, that's a slap. Wow. Wow, we're going deep with a knife on that one.
No, you control the Detroit market and you don't live in Michigan. So that's my point exactly.
You're right. But that's also telling you that a point we make a lot. You know, when you build relationships with U18 programs year after year after year, you get a trust with those programs where they trust you and you trust them. You're absolutely right. There are people I don't have to go and see as much as I do in other markets because I trust the coach. He knows exactly what I'm looking for. He knows exactly what our program likes. And over the years, because I've seen his team play year after year, I know what he produces and what kind of players. So when he talks the lingo, I know what he means when he says that kid's tough. Some other coaches say that kid's tough. It just means he carries a lighter purse to swing, you know, and that's not tough to me. But I would just challenge the fact that I think I agree with you. Video, I agree with you that coaches can do a lot of things online with a phone, with text, but I still know there's a lot of programs on the East that are the not as budgeted teams. There's some teams that are budget challenged when it comes to D3, and they're built only to take kids that they can drive to see. They're not built to try to expand through the area. And a lot of the schools, don't forget some schools, they want just in-state kids on their teams because they really just cater to those kids for the most part. Doesn't mean they won't take an out-of-state kid, but they know the price of the school that in-state's going to work for them better. And for example, the SUNY schools, if you're in-state in SUNY, you're practically going for free now. The way that the government's got it set up, so the SUNY Geneseos, the SUNY Brockports, the Ithacas, who am I missing? There's tons of them. Fredonia's, all those programs, they're great quality hockey programs. These institutions have been playing hockey for decades, but they're not going to go as far out as another program because they're just not budgeted. They look at in-state for 50 to 80% of their teams are going to come from in-state, and the rest are going to trickle to them from relationships. Calling a guy like you and saying, "Hey, Mike, who do you got? What should I be looking for you in an area?" I don't know if they're going to fly out to Chicago 2 or 3 times though. That's my only point.
Yeah, and I don't think they have to. I know the NCAA D1 guys are not flying all over the country to see these kids all over the place. There's specific showcases and events that they make sure that they're at. And for the most part, they're watching online like all the rest of us are because, they're coaching their teams throughout the year also. So
what do you think about this comment that I threw up? Both leagues are AA post youth hockey, meaning he believes that they're coming out of A and AA hockey. Neither is going to get your kid a scholarship. If you're good with that, pick which team works for you. What do you think about that comment, Mike?
I think that's a lot lower as far as like the caliber of what these leagues are. I mean, it's definitely not single A. You will definitely have AA and AAA players playing in those leagues, depending on the program, obviously.
Yep.
I guess you might see some single A kids in some of those programs, because again, that some of those leagues are so large that they need players and things like that. But I think the reality is this is kind of going off the same narrative of, if you're not playing tier 2 juniors, you're not going anywhere. And that's just not the case. Like how many total between both the USPHL Premier and the EHL are players from both those leagues that are in NCAA Division III?
Well, 1,200 kids right now.
That's 1,200 kids just from 2 leagues. That's not even
the
NA3. That's not in the Canadian junior leagues.
And remember, there's still a good sized proportion of players that come from the North American Hockey League.
Right.
You'll still get 100, 200 kids, coming from that league too. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is, yes, they pump out just a ton of players that go straight to D1 hockey. But the top tier D3 programs are still being, great players are being pumped in. The leading scorer from Shreveport went to play D3 hockey, and he became the leading scorer on one of the teams that are one of the top 5 teams in the nation. And I'm not going to give names because it's not, relevant to the conversation, except for, don't discount that kids make choices to go to D3 programs, out of the null too. So if I just throw the null in, I just want to see what the number is. I don't know, but I'm venturing between 1 and 200. What's your guess, Mike?
Yeah, I would say somewhere 150, 160.
Let's see who's right. I have not looked at this number since last year.
You got to share your screen so we all can see.
I don't want to. I will. Okay, so we're at NCAA D3. Let's share that screen and see what we come up with here. Okay, the screen is up. NCAA Division III. In the filter, I put the null, and then I click on my magic green button, and it pops out a result for me. So players that played in the null that are playing NCAA Division III hockey is 739 players. Okay. Now, just to defend my answer on this, because my answer was a little bit lower than that, I was thinking we pump out 100 to 200 players a year. And maybe you were thinking the same way, Mike.
Yeah. This is over 5, 6 years now with COVID.
But if you think about that, 739 players, that makes Division III hockey, pretty strong. I don't think most people think of it that way. But 739 players, and we didn't even count the goalies. We throw the goalies in there, 40 and 40. So you're over 800 players, 200 a year. Okay, we're right in the range. We're in the right ballpark.
And you'll see a lot of times too, where there's a player that is kind of like bouncing between the NA and the NA3, and they get into their last year, and instead of kind of being a guy that doesn't get many games in the NA and is kind of in and out, in many cases they choose to play in the NA3. They know they're going D3. They know that this is their path. This is their best option. So instead of not really contributing and developing, they want to play all the time, or maybe they have a hard time finding their role at the NA level because they're not really a grinder and they're kind of at the bottom of the roster. So they kind of choose to play on the NA3 and be the stud and whatnot.
Coaching weight. Okay, first of all, I'm reading comments. So we'll get to the comments, but I'm reading them along and I'm laughing out loud at some of the things that are out there. This is one that says, great info. My son has 4 offers in the EHL. Even though this isn't a question, they're trying to figure that out. Mike, what advice would you give to somebody? What should they be looking for? You got 4 EHL teams that are after you. What advice, what thought process would you help this family out with?
Yeah, so I would
first help. Maybe they don't need the help.
Yeah, I would first look at those programs. I would see how many kids on those programs have advanced to, D3, to some of the colleges and kind of where those kids have gone, and if some of those schools are at the level that you're interested in, trying to make it to, then at least that program has pushed kids to, these different colleges and whatnot. I would also look to see if, they have a lot of kids that are aging out, because that would kind of determine, how many available spots there are at my position and, how likely it is for me to kind of make that team and find a home there. And then I'd look at the coaches and see how long have they been there. Is it kind of a rotating door of coaches over the last few years where maybe the person who offered me this, opportunity, maybe they're not the coach by the time I get there because they've only been there a year. And then there was a previous guy and a previous guy and a previous guy. So just kind of looking at the consistency of those programs and how they're ran.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're visiting, of course, look at the facility, look at the rink. What's the relationship? Can you feel like the rink and the team are the same? They're on the same page? Or is the team always going, oh, the rink's always doing this to us and we're getting screwed on this for the rink? And, which happens. You got a lot of teams out there that it's like two contentious forces going at each other versus being, programs in harmony. You want the rink to feel like they are the junior team to feel like they're part of the rink. That's what works best. So yeah, I can't add anything that you said, Mike. You hit it on the nose. You've done this before. You've clearly, you've clearly done this. Okay, so when I asked if we were losing the audience, we got some responses, but the one that came in, when we were looking at the list, that's pretty fun is, Buzzy says coaching weight. We're looking at putting the coaching weight on. That was Mike. I got to tell you, I should have laughed louder on that one. That was a good comment you made about the coaching weight. Let's see what else we got here. We got why go to T3 pay to play, then go to D3 or ACHA hockey? Why not go directly to college? That's a great question. Let me take this one.
Okay, go ahead.
They won't take you. D3 programs. Why would they take an 18-year-old who is, for lack of better terms, a virgin to junior hockey, never had that experience, and put him right into D3 hockey when they can wait a few years? All things equal, they're going to find the same player as your 18-year-old in a 20 or 21-year-old body, okay? Except he's already gone through living away from home. He's already gone through the cycle of whatever kids that age do. If it's alcohol or other things, he's already had some time to mature. He's had some systematic coaching under his belt, and he's had to work through a lot of diversity because your divisiveness, the banging your head against the wall on problems, trying to figure things out as an individual away from home. Learning to live with a billet is very similar to living with other college roommates. You got to learn to get along with people. You've got to learn to budget when you're doing this because mom and dad might have said, hey, you're only going to get $30 a week or whatever it is. You have to do things completely different when you're a junior player. So NCAA Division III coaches, they take advantage of it. They want a guy that's got 2 or 3 years of juniors under their belt. They want a guy that's gone through all those things, that's matured and said, hey, enough of that. Doesn't mean that all NCAA Division III juniors, sophomores, freshmen are saints, but they get so much out of their system and they've matured so much, it's worth it to wait. So you could be a real superstar, but that's just not the way it works. Do you need proof of that, Mike? Should we give them proof?
Yeah, sure, if you want.
Let's give the audience a little proof here. Let's pull that screen back up. And that screen I'm talking about is Elite Prospects. So I'll come back over here. Man, we're getting the use out of this today, Mike.
Okay, I think the other point to make too is not only from all the stuff off the ice that player that's now 18, waits till they're 21, but most of these kids that are playing junior hockey are 21-year-old freshmen. So you're playing against 21, 22, 23, 24-year-olds as an 18-year-old. Like, even if you're really good, but you're playing D3, that's like an 18-year-old playing against like a 13 or 14-year-old. They might be good at 13 or 14, but there's a big difference between a 13 and 14-year-old and an 18-year-old, just like there is the difference between a 23-year-old and an 18-year-old.
So we said, 3,200 players in NCAA Division III hockey, correct? So let's go down to this number right here. I put in the filter, show me all the 18 and 19-year-olds playing Division III hockey. And the list says, dun, 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 3. What else can you say? So what is the percentage on 3 out of 3,000? I know it's 0.000 something, but it's practically zero. You're just not going to do it. Were they productive players? I would say that a kid that played 21 games and got 10 points as a 18-year-old, I think he's doing pretty darn good. Kid that's got 6 points, doing pretty good. And this kid's a defenseman. He only got 1 game in, and for whatever reason, he decided to go in early. He maybe came from Minnesota high school. That's not important. It just goes to show that there's three. They're probably all those 6'8" players that we were talking about, but that's it.
Those are all the Canadians.
Yeah. But that's the bottom line is there's just not that many. They're just not there. And so you can't argue with statistics on that. Now, ACHA completely 180 on that. You're absolutely right on the ACHA side. If you want to go early, you're probably not going to get on too many D1 ACHA teams because they like that junior experience, older, stronger, faster, more mature. But there's plenty of opportunities to go right out of high school, right after you're U18 and jump into an ACHA program somewhere. It might not be the one you like, but you'll find a program. If playing hockey is what you want to do, yes, you can play most likely D3 or D2 ACHA hockey and have a good time. That's the purpose of a lot of the D3 programs is to have a good time. So hopefully that helps. Anything to add to that, Mike, before we jump on to the next question?
Nope.
Let's see here. This comment says, more players I've played with this year in the USP commit to ACHA over NCAA. I just looked through all the numbers from the last couple of years. I maybe a little bit up, but the biggest difference is more people are talking about ACHA now than ever before. And it's not an embarrassment to say you're going to go play ACHA because there's good quality hockey. You hear more people talking about it. I think, this is my opinion. Maybe you're right. Maybe you do see more from your perspective. But I know it used to be if you're going to go play club hockey, you didn't tell anybody on your junior team. You just went and did it. It was almost like you kind of went out the door and covered your eyes and hoping that nobody looked at you. Now people are like, hey, I'm going to play ACHA. I'm going to play for this team or that team. And, it's considered good hockey now at the level it is. You can have good D3 hockey. You can have good USPHL hockey. You can have good NA3HL hockey. You can have good ACHA hockey at each of the levels too. So no big deal now. So that's what I think on that one. So here's a question. Wouldn't it be a better comparison be the EHL to the NCDC? Ooh.
No.
Ooh, good question. Handle that one, Mike. Preach. Tell them about it.
I mean, the NCDC is way more of a tier 2 level. I think they claim that they're tier 2. The NCDC is a way higher level across the board than the EHL is. The caliber of player, the caliber of teams, the opportunities that come from it. They're just in a league above their own. And like you said, when you kind of broke down what the EHL is, the EHL in the USPHL and everything, they used to basically be what the NCDC is now. They just created that higher tier, and then the other ones kind of broke down underneath them and then separated. So it was like the NCDC's here, and then the USPHL came down here, and then the EHL came over here. So the comparables are EHL, USPHL Premier, and NA3, I would say, from the U.S. perspective.
From the U.S. perspective. Yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, so once again, we got to go to the facts. Okay, here we go again. We're going to go on the screen.
Take the opinions out of it, Jeff.
Take the opinions out of it. Okay, this is the NCAA Division I, because this is really how you're going to tell the difference in the level of the league. NCAA Division I with players coming from the EHL. This means a kid that, for whatever amount of time he spent, he worked his way through the EHL to make it to Division I hockey. The list is 17 players. Okay, and then you've got 3 goalies. And of those 17 players, if we list it by games played, you're going to see that there's some players in the bottom here that are not freshmen. They're higher level kids that just aren't getting in the lineup much. So 17 of the goalies, you got just over 20 players or just at 20 players total from the EHL. And then remember, that's covering a 4 or 5 year period, maybe even a 6 year period because of the pandemic. Because usually you have 4 years and 1 extra year for a redshirt. Now you've got pandemic, 4 years, and a redshirt year. So this covers a 6 year span, 20 players. Now, let's go back up here to the top. Let's replace that with the NCDC.
And you got some NHL draft.
Yep, you've got one. Holy smokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You got a few. 8, 9, 10. And then the goalies. So you can see 11, 12, 13. Now, remember, some of these USP or these NCDC kids, this is pandemic time where they played just during the pandemic, but the number is incredibly different than the EHL. So you really can't compare the two leagues. There's 148 players, and there are 9, 11. There's 20 goalies, 148. So you're pushing, 170, 175 kids through. Just no comparison. And the caliber of the kids are totally different. But I can tell you, I'll give you one example here. Hunter McDonald was a Null kid and a USHL kid. I think he played one game. If we clip on, I know the family well. If you clip on him, he just signed a contract yesterday with the Philadelphia Flyers. And if you look at this, I bet you, he played he played prior to the Null in the USHL. He played 21 games in the NCDC. Went to Corpus Christi at the end of that year. Really struggled with the Monarchs. They were a really struggling team. Went to Corpus Christi, and then he jumped right into the USHL. That's the level of kid you're talking about. You're talking about kids that the top end are kids that are going to move to the USHL, Null and the USHL, and the bottom end of the kids are still going to play quality D3 hockey. So, Mike, anything to add to that?
No, that's a good job breaking it down.
See what else we got. Buzzy's got someone. Now, we keep talking about Buzzy. Buzzy used to be he was probably the most beloved scout in his 1 week on the job for us at the Lone Star Brahmas. Buzzy, on his own dime, flew all the way into Minnesota for a showcase to meet with us and to work with us. And I think he started getting job offers before he even left from Minnesota, because he's a quality coach. He's a quality hockey guy, and we just couldn't keep him because he was moving up the ladder. And now I think he might be, running the NHL now or something. I don't, if not, it'll be this week where he gets that offer. So he says, you're both right. Budgets matter. If they can't travel, video is the aid. Hard to get out west and make good trips minus showcase opportunities. So I'm going to take that as a win for me. He says we're both right, but I'm going to take that as a win. So,
hey, you need them. So go ahead.
We are in Rochester. It is my impression that to play on a D3 team, one has to play juniors. You're right. That's a good way of saying it. This one says, we need the help. Thank you. So somebody's liking what we're doing. I appreciate that. Here's one. USPHL holds a lot more showcases than any other tier 3 league. Yeah, they're built on showcases. That is true. That's something you should factor in. Do showcases help or hinder? Do they make it more expensive to play on a team? You got to ask all these questions. Clearly a showcase allows them to get more of the league together to play games in one spot, gets the East playing the West a little bit, gives that, that little bit of flavor. But you're right. Does the showcase actually cost your family more money? If you've got to fly, if you're a family that likes to go watch your kid play, if you got to fly around to see them play in showcases, you just got to factor that in the budget. A lot of times that's one thing that people don't factor in. We knew when our son went to play in Alberta, that's Canada, Mike. That's way out west. That's past Chicago. We had to fly out there to see him play, and to fly out from Rochester to go to either Calgary or Edmonton, the two places you fly into. It's a pretty penny, but we had to factor that into the budget. How many times could we go out to see him? Fortunately for me, I had reasons to be out there for business, so I could get a trip or two in during the season. But for my wife to go out there, it was really hard to put that into the budget. So NA throws one showcase in Blaine, whereas the USPHL holds over 10 a year. Now, the question I don't know is, does a USPHL team have to attend 10 events, or is it pick and choose an a la carte for an individual team? Let's see what this one says. I think they're challenging me here. Has played null is still in the filter. No, I took it off. I caught that too. Kim, good catch. And I took it off and fixed that. So nice catch though. Somebody's got it on a big screen TV where they can see everything. Would a D3 school counter that with an academic scholarship to incentivize players they really want? Mike, you want that one, or you want me to take this one?
Well, that's pretty much how they get their players, because they can't offer athletic scholarships. So their scholarships that they provide are academic.
Which means though, what?
What?
You got to have good academics.
Well, yeah.
So, where a D1 player could be a B- student and still get a full ride, you're not going to get the same academic package as a hockey player if you're a B- student versus the same player next to you in the locker room that's an A student, or high ACT, high grades coming in. They all have programs. I mean, they call them the President's Academic Award. They call them, an academic grant. They got different names for it, but they have different tiers of how much money they will give a freshman coming in for high academics. If you don't have high academics and you're not, running AP courses or, college credit courses, it's very, very difficult to get a decent amount of money. Some give you a piece of money if you're an out-of-state student just for walking in the door. But you see less and less of that now, mostly tied to it. What used to happen and doesn't happen anymore is you used to see, and this is only a few years ago, you used to see D3 teams that would be given tons of money to players because they would use the German club budget, or they'd use the chess team, the club budgets. And all of a sudden you'd see 10 guys named Anton Vladiskov on the chess team that never went to the chess team, or in the French club at the school. And that's been cleaned up a little bit. Some of the schools, I think most of them have winded down off of their probation periods, and that's not talked about much, but that used to be an issue there. So here's another one. Mike, take this one.
Thoughts on the no-J and how it compares to leagues in Canada and other leagues in the U.S., such as the NCDC. So, yeah, I mean, this is where things get a little bit sloppier when you're trying to compare based on like opinions. When you go to the elite prospects and you do the reverse searches and everything like Jeff did, that's where you can see where do these players end up going. The no-J is very comparable when it comes to those tier 3 junior leagues. You're going to obviously have a lot more Canadians playing in the no-J, so they don't always want to go to the U.S. colleges and whatnot, even though they're playing junior hockey. So it does skew the numbers a little bit when you factor in that amount of Canadians within that league. But you can still see of the kids in that league, how many are able to get to D3 or are able to get promoted out of that league to a higher junior league, and then they kind of go down the path from there. But I don't know if I can compare the no-J to the NCDC directly when it comes to like the ability of the players in the league. I still probably think the NCDC is the better league between the two when it comes to the caliber. But if it was between the no-J and like the EHL or the USPHL Premier, I would probably say the no-J, but it's close. Like, it's similar. There's an argument to be made, with those tier 3 teams or programs within those leagues.
Yeah. To me, it's a little clearer. I think you can find an answer with statistics on this. I'm not going to pull the screen up this, but I'll give you an idea. This is a 12-team league. It's not a very big league. It's if you don't know much about where the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League is, this is pretty much from the Sioux all the way around the east side of Michigan on the Canadian side, all the way down to the Port Huron area, I think, is where anything north of Port Huron. That's kind of the loop. It kind of takes up that area. There's some good hockey players there. It's just a small league. So your production out of there, and Mike is absolutely right. The amount of kids that come out of there, Canadian kids, that will go play U Sport or go play or they'll stay around and play senior men's hockey before they'll go to an American school, especially with what's going on with the economy in Canada right now. I mean, it costs you like $43 for a loaf of bread right now. Telling somebody they got to pay $30,000 a year, even if they get a break on it because they're an international student in high academics, get that number down to $15,000 for a private D3 school. That's still 15 grand of American money. There are times when Canadian kids love to come down here, and that's usually when the Canadian dollar is very, very strong. You'll see a much more of a liberal spending of the money up in Canada. When the economy is not good with high inflation rates and all the things going on with the Canadian dollar right now, you just see less players coming over the border that have to pay. That's just the way it is, So yeah. I agree. Do you see kids going to D3? Absolutely see kids coming out of the NoJo to go to D3. You see some kids that will make it into higher leagues. They'll go play in the NAL. Rarely you'll see a kid go to the USHL, and you'll see them move up into the Division I ranks. But once again, it's a 12-team league. It's not big, and so it doesn't have the same numbers as the CCHL or the OJ or even the AJ. Even AJ smaller now by the teams that left for the BCHL, which we'll see how that goes next year. But I still think that it's a comparable to the leagues we're talking about tonight, the EHL, and it's comparable to the USPHL Premier. And maybe some of the players are even higher caliber because there is some good high caliber players.
Yeah.
But as a league, I think they're closer to being on par. That was a lot of talking for just saying that. We should have just come on and said that at the first part, huh?
You could have just said, I agree with Mike.
I don't like saying that. We got this one, Mike. Take it.
This makes me feel better. We were told juniors was the way to go to get to a D3 team as they take players that are 21.
Okay, good. Got that. We all agree with that. My son played 3 years of juniors, picked a school for his degree. He made the D2 ACHA team, but his school is trying to go NCAA. From what we have seen in this season, ACHA is some tough competitive hockey, great for a kid who wants to play. Great. That's we needed you a week or two ago when we did the ACHA broadcast. Where were you? You put that comment up for that. I should read these before I keep throwing them up. I keep throwing them up, then reading them. There might be things we don't want to have come up here. Got that, Mike? What does it say?
In terms of advancement to college and overall caliber of play.
Yeah, he must have been commenting on something specifically we were talking about. We got a lot of comments going on here.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say too, when it comes to like ACHA for kids who have gone the junior route and then end up going and playing college club, a lot of people think that, like you were saying earlier, like that's bad or that like you didn't make it or whatever else. There's a lot of kids that still get NCAA D3 opportunities that come their way, and they end up choosing to go the college club route because in many cases they're going to a much larger school that gets more of the college experience than what they are getting from the different D3 schools that are coming for them. Because again, when you're playing as an athlete, whether it's in the USHL or the NA or any of these tier 3 leagues, you don't get to choose what school is interested in you. So if all of a sudden the only colleges that are coming to you that are interested in you are somewhere where you wouldn't want to go and live and go to school, or it's not exactly the experience you're looking for, it's not that you didn't get those opportunities or you weren't good enough to make it in NCAA D3, but you made a conscious choice that I don't want to go to these 1 or 2 schools that are coming for me. I'd prefer to go here that's got my major and it's got the experience I'm looking for. Yeah, it's college club, so it's perceived not to be, as high of a level or whatever, but that's what the kid is choosing. I mean, I coached with a guy who played in the NAL for 3 years and decided to go to the ACHA D1 level to Ohio University, which is one of the premier programs. But he made that choice because that was the experience he wanted. He didn't want to go D3 in some of these smaller schools and whatnot. And that scenario plays out, fairly frequently with a lot of these kids.
You could have just said you agree with Jeff.
Sure, I agree with Jeff.
Could you use the filter to see how many Null kids are playing ACHA Division One? Didn't we do this all last week?
I think we might have done that exact search, but
yeah, we did.
People want to see you maneuver in that board, man.
I'm not going to, though, because I got this all up here now. Okay. Memory like a vice once a week. Okay. The number is 6%, but you got to be careful with that number. You got to be really careful with that number. It's not really 6% because once you filter through players that actually played more than 10 games, it goes down to 1%. 1% of players played more than 10 games in the North American Hockey League. So yes, we did it. If you don't believe me, okay, darn it. I will throw it up there on the screen for you, just because this is a good question, but we did answer it last week. Stump, you should go watch last week's broadcast, but since you're here, first of all, let's go. How do we want to get to this number? You asked the question, how many are playing?
You got to go to NCAA D1.
No, he said ACHA D1, didn't he?
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay. Thanks for not knowing what the hell you're talking about, Mike. Okay, so there's ACHA popped in. And who was our one that was giving us telling us when the filter was not on right? Did I hit it right that time? I think it did. Okay, here's your ACHA Division I programs. And then we jump down here. We find our little list of players. We show more. And remember this number, Mike. Write this number down for me. You got to write this down, Mike. You ready? You got a pen, Mike?
It's 847.
1847.
1847.
And then add the goalies in. The goalies are 252. Okay. So now let's go back up to the top here of this list. Let's throw the null in here. In AHL. Right there, we grab that. Apply the filter. Hopefully done right. And then we'll see the number here is 110 players. And then goalies, we're talking about 16. Now, here's the thing to be careful with on the goalies. So there's 16 goalies with quote unquote with null experience. And I don't want to pick on any of these kids. I will do this once the screen's off because I don't want to embarrass a kid or pull a kid up. But just, I can tell you right now, the total amount of games on this list that those kids played in the null is less than 10 total. Most of those kids were rostered on a team. Maybe at the beginning of the season, they came up with the team and they were on the roster for a few games and they got dropped. Some of them got one game in. I think one player out of all the goalies at ACHA Division One, all those goalies listed with null experience, one guy's got 2 games in the null. So, you have to really discount that. So, Mike, 110, and then what do we say on the goalies? 15. So 125 players, 125 divided by that number. What is it? You got your calculator handy?
Well, I got my phone handy.
Okay. What was that number? 18 plus what?
1847 was the skaters.
And then how many?
252 goalies.
So what's the total number?
2,099.
5.9%. Drop the mic. I was almost perfect on that. We did this last week.
I was going to say, that's so surprising. It's only been 1 week since you looked at those numbers.
And remember, though, once we discount out, and once again, I'm not going to embarrass anybody. I'll take this screen off, and I'm going to pick, a couple kids here just to give you an example once I flip the screen. Okay, I don't want to embarrass any kid, but I'll pick a couple kids here without mentioning them and give you an idea. So one kid, first kid I pull up, he played all in a 3-time, got 3 games in the North American Hockey League, but he counts. And that's the majority of the kids on this list. I think that the amount of kids that had 50 to 100 games in the null was less than 10. And I don't have that sheet of paper in front of me. Remember last week, Mike, I was showing you my piece of paper. That's stacked away somewhere and I just don't have it. But that's a good question, Stump. If you go back and watch last week's broadcast, all that's on there. You can get all that information. So let's go to the next comment here. USPHL schedules where the teams go for their showcases. Okay, so the USPHL. The question though, maybe you can, whoever put that on there, how many showcases is each team doing? Are they doing a lot? Oh, here, Buzzy. Once again, he's probably the commissioner of the USPHL by now. Teams must attend at least 3 showcases, I believe, but not all the teams attend every showcase. Good to know. Traditionally, the biggest showcases are in Chicago, pre-Christmas, or Boston, New Year's Eve. And once again, though, Buzzy's not going to get himself tied down. Legally, throws a, in my opinion, on there so that nobody can sue him for that information. Thanks, Buzzy. Appreciate it. And then we jump on here, and Stump 4 says you have to find the native tribe kids that their reservations pay their tuitions from Canada for the D3 pricing. Yeah, that's interesting. You know, and I'm not sure if you're talking to somebody else that's on the conversation group, Stump, or if you're just throwing that up. There are players in that situation. I've had numerous players that play that have played for me over the years. I say numerous. I probably had 6 players that have played American juniors that were coming from one of the native tribes out of the Canadian side. And because they were on the Canadian side, they did have funds that were available for them to pay tuition. So that is a great, great advantage for them in that situation. And very interesting, though, you know, just having the conversations with them. Some of them were excited about that, and some of them, because they were playing Tier 3 juniors, you know, were doing everything not to let the whatever the committee or the group that was working on the funding for it, they almost didn't want to tell them. I'd say it was probably 50-50, you know, 50% were real excited, and the other 50%, I think that maybe the expectations when they left home was that they were going to play at a higher level, and they didn't make it that level, and they almost go back with a tail between their legs kind of feeling, you know. So very interesting, but it's money, and I think that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. My boys did one in Raleigh and 2 in Florida, talking about the showcases. Mike, wrap us up. Tell us what you think. Get a summary on this. We can stay here all day. Comments are, that's great. Great comments are coming in. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Don't forget, if you like this, go to our discussion group. Make sure you take some time to join the discussion group. Remember, there's also a Facebook page you can like, and that's important too. Different information goes. The discussion group doesn't always get everything we post, so it's always good to go to our Facebook page, Junior Hockey Advisor, and also sign yourself up there just so you get all the information. And our YouTube page, very important to get on the YouTube page and make sure that you're on there too. So, Mike, bring us home.
Yeah, I would just say, to kind of sum everything up, hopefully what people got out of this is, you know, the whole narrative of, if you're not playing Tier 2 juniors or higher, that, you know, it's a path to nowhere. Just realizing that there is a ton of different opportunities that these kids are getting, both at the NCAA D3 level or even the ACHA D1 level. Like, you know, you're still getting tuition reimbursement in some cases, and, you know, there's opportunities there for these kids to, you know, get a break on their college and still get a chance to play hockey and choose their school. So the last 2 episodes, we've kind of, you know, taken it from a Tier 3 perspective of juniors, which isn't the most sexy conversation to have, but let's face it, there's a ton of players and families and people that are trying to navigate Tier 3 juniors, and
Yep.
You know, getting this information to them is going to help them do their own homework and understand what the best fit is for them and what league is the best fit. And I think the way I try to explain it to people, the league doesn't necessarily dictate the opportunity. The team within the league is going to be more of the situation that is going to either lead you to a better path or maybe be a roadblock, depending on what team it is you're playing within that league. So my point is if you're playing Tier 3 juniors, just because you're playing in the EHL doesn't mean you're going to get a Division 3, school opportunity. Just because you're playing in the USPHL Premier doesn't mean you're not going to have a school out east that's interested in you, or the NA3 or wherever else. Like,
Yep.
There's a lot of misnomers out there on how all of this gets connected and what the next opportunity is. So it's just understanding how to get that information. What you showed on how they can do that research on their own is very helpful for people to again, take opinions out of it, because you're going to hear coaches and other parents that have kids that have gone down a different path. And it's like, everybody thinks they've got the answers and everyone thinks they know what's what. And you can't listen to people's opinions. You got to dig in and find the facts and, help that guide your decision.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mike. That makes a lot of sense. And that did kind of sum up this week and last week. I would really like to hear, we threw a lot of facts out to you statistically. I'd like to hear, were you surprised by some of the numbers, especially Stump 4, you came on. It doesn't sound like you caught last week's episode. That's fine. You can go back and watch it. We won't hold that against you. But was that surprising to you about the amount of null players? Because that number, people throw out things like, oh, there's hundreds of players, that all go play ACHA Division I. Not factual. That number is extremely low. Did that surprise you at all? Did it surprise anybody else? Did any of the comparisons surprise anybody on, the amount of players, they're coming from the USPHL, how many are coming from the EHL? Was any of that helpful? Was it surprising? Was it what you expected? I'd love to see some of the comments and let us know what you think. And that's the biggest. Wow. So Stump says it's actually. I hope you're okay. Stump 4. I hope that's not offending or triggering you if I just say Stump. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't trying to be offensive. So especially if that's one of your pronouns, I don't want to get into that. Offending you there, Stump. So.
I don't think you even know what you're talking about.
I don't. I've never worried. I don't worry about that pronoun stuff. The people.
I don't think you can offend somebody who chose their name to be Stump.
That's true. Now hold it. It could be. Could be. What if he's only got one sleeve?
He chose his own name.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Okay, so it's actually more than I thought. Wow. So the way to look at that 110 though, Stump, is I think that probably half that number had a decent amount of games. The other, I got to put this up.
Normal.
Okay, so folks, thank you so much. We had a blast tonight. This has been fun tonight. It should be, and hopefully you're learning along the way. Thank you so much for the interaction. We had tons of people interacting with us. And remember, we're doing this on Twitter. We're doing this on LinkedIn. We're doing this on several different Facebook places, YouTube. You can catch us a lot of places, and not all the people's comments show up to us here. And I'll try to respond to a lot of people afterwards that were on some of the other platforms that may not have shown up here tonight. So thanks again. Oh, by the way, Mike, and I know we're trying to get off. Did you know that our fastest viewed video that we've done on these live streams was 3 weeks ago when we did the dark side of junior hockey?
What do you mean our fastest? What does that mean?
In the first week, we had more viewers on that than any other first week. The first 2 weeks, more viewers than any other video we've done out of the few hundred videos we've done. So it's kind of cool to see that, we're getting more people, and, of course, we're putting a little more time into titles. We're putting a little more time into thumbnails.
We're starting to figure this thing out.
Yeah. Give us a couple more hundred. We'll videos. We'll get to the point where we do this right.
Hey, so I'll go full circle on you, since you started off asking me about the Red Wings, right? The one thing that I have a hard time understanding with how the NHL does like their tiebreakers. So the Red Wings and the Capitals both have 91 points, right? The Capitals get the edge because they had more wins in regulation. So that's why they win that tiebreaker. But if you look at their actual record, the Capitals only had 40 wins total, and the Wings had 41 wins total. So wouldn't that be the first tiebreaker in the points, is who had the most total wins, not who had the most? Like if they had the same points, same total wins, then it's like, well, how many, or who had the most regulation wins?
I'll have to refer you.
Tiebreaker.
I'll have to refer you to one of those Detroit Red Wings podcasts, because to be honest with you,
that doesn't make any sense.
I know, and I'm a fair weather fan these days. I used to be a diehard, never missed a minute of a Red Wings game, but I'm so busy with hockey in other areas now that I just don't have the time to. I mean, I used to know every single name on the roster. I think I can name 5 guys on the Red Wings right now, maybe 4. It's just a different era for me, and I'm not close to NHL hockey anymore.
Well, I don't really care that they're in or not. Like, that's not.
I get it. I'm just saying I'm not the guy to ask for that question. I just don't know.
Yeah. I'm wondering if anybody out there is like read into this anymore of like, I don't know how that tiebreaker, how would you miss total wins and go directly to wins in regulation? Like, that didn't make any sense to me.
Should we change the name of the show and start incorporating the Red Wings too? The junior hockey advisor plus the Red Wings
and Michigan football, and
Okay, I know we got to go with. If you're at the Michigan football spring game this weekend, look me up. I'll be there. I'll be at the spring game. I'm going to get a chance to actually meet the new coach, handshake, talk to him a little bit, meet with the AD, and I'm going to have a blast there. So if you're in Ann Arbor and you're going to the game, it's free, but get there early. They're expecting a huge crowd. So I'm looking forward to that.
Make sure to tell the coaches to quit drinking and driving while you're down there, because we've already lost 2 coaches before the year started.
Who's the other one?
Denard Robinson just got clipped a couple days ago for operating while intoxicated.
How did I miss that? I got subscribe on all those different things. How did I miss Denard? That's why there was some comments on Twitter about Denard today. I wasn't putting it together with what he did wrong.
Yeah.
Denard's a great guy, but he was a peripheral on the coaching staff. So I don't think we're going to miss a beat. I'm sad that happened. He's a really nice guy, but it's sad that stuff happens. I don't understand why people do that, and never will.
Hey, show them how to access Uber, and then take off.
Fully agree. Well, now that we've brought the show completely full circle, time to go, folks. Thank you so much, Mike. Great job tonight. Great insight. Appreciate everything.
I know.
Goodbye.
Not so bad yourself, Jeff. See you, everyone.
All right.